So here's a video on the top 10 habits that will completely destroy your trucking career. So these are 10 habits that we see right now drivers doing out there in the US and Canada and North America that will completely destroy your trucking career. So number one we'll talk about is texting and driving. This is becoming more and more common out there. So if you are caught texting and driving, if you're caught with this phone in your hand while you're driving, most likely a recruiter or most likely somebody on the other end will not be able to recruit you if you have that violation on your record. Guys, if you haven't already started to, you really need to start talking to your cell phone, like Siri, okay? There's a way to communicate with your cell phone without holding your cell phone, okay? So if your phone is mounted on your dash, there is ways to communicate or learn to communicate with Siri where you can read text messages back and forth, right? So if you're in a situation where you're actually driving a truck and you say, "Hey Siri, send a text message to Johnny Dispatch."
What do you want to say to Johnny Dispatch?
"Hey Johnny, I'm so sorry I'm running late. Can you please call the receiver and let them know that I'm gonna be about 2 hours late. There was an accident on the road."
Your message says, "Hey Johnny, I'm so sorry I'm running late. Can you please call the receiver and let them know that I'm gonna be about 2 hours late. There was an accident on the road." Do you want to send it or change it? I won't send it.
So I will cancel that, I will not send, but we really need to start getting into the habit of texting via voice. So you gotta, just like I did right now, you should be able to send text messages, receive text messages, do your phone calls, everything through voice, and while still, keeping an eye out on that road and not being distracted by your cell phone. Okay, the second thing that's becoming really popular is people driving and watching movies or watching things on YouTube or watching things, just watching stuff on their cell phone. It's becoming more and more of a habit with drivers. Yes, their phone is mounted. Yes, they're still, they're looking at the roads, but a big problem is people watching while they're driving. So yes, that's still considered distracted driving, and we would not recruit a driver that has a violation of distracted driving. All right, now let's get into our third thing, abandoning a truck. So as you probably know, when we recruit drivers, we would take a driver through the entire process, the recruiting process. And the last thing that we leave to the end is the references from another company. Now, we can spot the difference between fake references and good references, okay? So a driver that has abandoned a truck, okay, if we get that in the reference that driver abandoned a truck, that's a huge no-no and a huge red flag. We would not proceed. Now, a lot of the times we would call the driver, ask them what happened. In most cases, right, unless the truck broke down and the truck, it would take 2 weeks to get the parts, there is no justification for abandoning a truck. Even if the company, you might not agree with me, but there's a lot of companies out there that they threaten the driver with not paying them. That's still not a reason to abandon a truck. Wherever you started with the truck, that's where you should drop off that truck. All right, number 4, drugs and alcohol. Again, a huge no-no. Under no circumstances, without any exceptions, should there be drugs or alcohol inside your truck. I don't care if you're on your off hours. I don't care if you're, if it's at nighttime. I don't believe in any drivers having any drugs or alcohol while they're working or while they're on the road. Some of the things, one thing that I have a problem with, I really have a problem with, how we do drug and alcohol test, like a drug test. So somebody who smokes marijuana, if he smoked a week ago or 2 weeks ago, there's a trigger for it, and you would see it in the urine. The one thing that you would not see is if somebody had a 2-4, 3 days ago or 4 days ago, or even 2 nights ago, it would not be traced, and he or she would still be able to work after getting plastered, and that kind of drives me nuts, but there's really not much that people can do about it. The drug and alcohol system, I know that they're starting to come out with, or they want to come out with, the hair follicles. I wonder how far that would get, but definitely, guys, drugs and alcohol should not, under no circumstances, should they be in your cab, should they be in your system. And while even if you're on a 5-day trip, 6-day trip, 2 weeks inside that truck, there should be absolutely no drugs and alcohol anywhere part of you or your life while you're driving on the road. The next thing we'll talk about is the misuse of personal conveyance. Okay, so this is also getting out of hand lately. Misuse of personal conveyance. So driver, let's say, has another hour and a half to get to their delivery, but they only have 45 minutes left on their clock. Now, what the driver is supposed to do is supposed to pull over, get the rest that they need, and then continue their trip the next day. What I see happening more and more is that drivers are putting their status on personal conveyance, and then they drive for that 45 minutes, and then the next 45 minutes they will drive under personal conveyance. So I want you to know that here in our safety department, and in most companies in that safety department, personal conveyance is the first thing that gets flagged. So every day the safety manager would come in, he would have a list of everybody who used the personal conveyance, and he would actually track and see, who used it for what. So yes, if you're going to Walmart, yes, if you're going, to a movie theater, you are allowed to use personal conveyance after your shift. But if you are driving in that same direction and your trailer is loaded, there's really not much justification on what you can say for the reason to use your personal conveyance. I know a lot of drivers really try to convince the safety manager, I really needed to do this, or I really needed to do that. And this is a big no-no, and misuse of personal conveyance is becoming more and more common. The next thing that we'll talk about is constant violations. So if a driver has multiple violations, even though they're different, or their driver abstract shows that they have multiple violations in different cities, different towns, for different reasons, it just shows you that the driver might not be as cautious as he needs to be. People will do a double take on you, or might not hire you because you have multiple violations. Now, you need to understand that these violations, they don't only go on the driver record, but they also go on the record of the company. So when you get a violation out there, it's not only your record, it's the company record that is at stake also. Now, if there's a lot of violations on the company record, that company, for them to renew their insurance policy the following year, they're going to be paying a huge premium, a 20% increase, 30% increase, because of a lot of these violations on their CVR. All right, so the next thing I'm going to talk about is a driver's shitty attitude. I mean, I stumble upon a lot of really good guys out there, but I also stumble upon some drivers that really have like a bad and nasty attitude. Now, when somebody's recruiting, or when you're calling in for a job, and I sometimes I'm on the lines because I'm training, right? So I'll train my recruiters on how to spot good drivers, not so good drivers. But sometimes you get some really nasty phone calls into the office where somebody would call in and be like, hey, are you guys hiring? Yes, we're hiring. Here are the positions. And then they're like, oh, can you tell me a little bit more about your rates? And then all of a sudden the person is like, hell no, I'm not working for those rates. What the hell do I look like? And they start mouthing off to that recruiter, but the recruiter is not really at fault. They just have a set of fees and guidelines that they go by, and they just give off this information to the drivers. But sometimes we hear the nasty side of that driver come out. And I want you to know that with every profile that we have, I mean, here at ET Transport we have over 7,500 drivers a part of our database. And when drivers call in, and when they pull up your record, like, it doesn't have to be your driving record, but if they pull out your contact record, there's notes there, and if you're being if you're being really unpleasant or nasty to the recruiter, they will have that a part of your profile. So the next time, whether it's in 6 months or a year, or maybe in 2 years, or even 3 years, I mean, we have drivers dating back to 7, 8, 10 years ago. We still have their contact records, and we have notes on these drivers. So a shitty attitude is not going to get you far. All right, so next topic we'll talk about is the fender benders, okay? So drivers that have constant minor fender benders, and usually we see this through the references from the other side. So as a driver gets recruited, we'll ask for references for the last 2 or 3 companies that he or she used to work at. Now, sometimes there's a lot of, there's notes on damages, a lot of damages, or even drivers in our fleet, everything's great for 2-3 years, and then all of a sudden, they run into 3-4 different minor fender benders. This usually means that the driver's mind is not there, and most of the time that I see, the reason that he's like, a driver could be physically there, but his mind is running off somewhere else. A lot of it has to do with finances, or he or she is going through a divorce, or he or she some problems within the family. So we see that a driver that's amazing all of a sudden has a really bad 3 or 4 fender benders. So fender benders, guys, just watch out for them. They can destroy your trucking career. Speeding, obviously speeding is a big no-no. If you have it on your record, 15 over, 10 over, 20 over. I think there was a poll that was done, and stats out there that a driver is probably 150% more likely to get into an accident if he or she has a speeding ticket a prior speeding within the last, within the last year. So those stats are really, really scary, and we as trucking companies, we don't want to take those risks because it's hard enough, as it is to run a trucking company, but to have a big accident on yourself, owners of companies are constantly getting dragged into lawsuits. Directors of companies are starting to get dragged into lawsuits, and these lawsuits are becoming more and more voluminous financially. So before, you can settle a lawsuit for $300,000-$400,000. Today, nothing's getting settled for anything under a few $1,000,000. So that's why trucking companies are extremely careful with not hiring drivers that have prior speeding tickets. All right, guys, well, there you have it. I mean, from a recruiter standpoint, this is what I see, this is what I've done. This is the way we train our company here. These are 10 qualities that will destroy your trucking career. Hopefully you learned something from this video. If you like the video, give it a thumbs up, share it with other drivers. I'm Ronen, R-O-N-E-N, and I'll catch you in my next video.